the final presentation, which is Genevieve, Dingle and Rong, both from the University of Queensland. And Rong will be presenting on behalf of Genevieve and herself, and going to be speaking about UQ Voices, a choir for connection and wellbeing of international students attending an Australian university in the context of COVID-19. Over to you, Rong.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rong from the School of Psychology, the University of Queensland. I'm excited to share with you today the UQ Voices, a choir for connection and well-being of international students in the COVID time. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet and pay my respects to their ancestors and descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognize their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. As we all know, beginning university can be an excellent opportunity for personal growth, but it also comes with its own challenges. For international students, they may face unique stressors such as culture shock, intense pressure from family to succeed, and difficulties with language. Also, loneliness and isolation are common among international students because they may lose the contact with previous networks and separate from their familiar culture and linguistic environment. In my earlier research, we found that first-year international students were significantly lonelier, experienced more mental health problems, and had lower well-being during the first wave of COVID in 2022, compared to the year before and the year after. We know that loneliness and a lack of belonging at university have negative impacts to students' learning, retention, and academic success. So, unfortunately, the sense of disconnection has been emphasized during COVID time. What can we do about this then? How can we help students feel less lonely and more a part of the university community? So what about singing in a choir? Previous studies found that choir singing can increase social bond and benefits the emotion of healthy adults as well as those experiencing mental health conditions. Also, there is something special about doing things in sync with others. It enhances the sense of union with other people and self-categorization as a group member. Like singing in a choir, it not only makes us happy when we sing, it also makes us feel like we are really part of the choir. This could be really helpful for students who feel isolated, giving them a sense of belonging and boosting their confidence in other parts of their life too. Though this works in general, we haven't really looked into whether a choir for university students, especially for international students, would have the same positive effects. That's why we are trying to find out today. Can joining a choir make university life better and help international students feel more connected? Let's take a quick tour of our choir journey. It began in 2022 with a Welcome Back choir. We wanted to welcome international students who were stuck overseas back to Australia and to bring them together to sing and support each other, especially after everything went sideways with the pandemic. A lot of unexpected things happened at the beginning of 2022, such as flood, and we just talked about, and a new wave of COVID. But we still managed to conduct a focus group study to understand international students' choir experience better. Then we had our new choir name, UQ Voices, and official social media account. In the mid-2022, we were invited to sing at a graduation dinner for Thai joint program students, and that's our very first gig in the middle. After that, we launched the choir study, which I will talk about it in detail later. In 2023, we suddenly got a lot of members, interestingly, and we have many boys join us this year, which is amazing because, we tried very hard to persuade boys to stay in the choir before. And we got some awesome opportunities to perform on bigger stages, such as TEDx UQ and at Queen Street Mall. So go back to the choir study. The aim of this project is to examine the effectiveness of the choir singing for international students. We hypothesize that choir participants will show greater improvement in loneliness, psychological distress, well-being, and sense of belonging, both compared to the non-participants and over time. Participants in this study will be choir members, so returning and new international students at any level at UQ who join UQ Voices. The control group will be international students at UQ who are not in the UQ Voices. The study has a 2x2 design with 2 conditions, choir and control, and 2 survey points, pre and post. Choir members complete a pre-survey when they join the choir, and another one 6 to 8 weeks later. The control group follow the same survey timeline. We have many variables in the survey. These are some very important ones here: loneliness, well-being, psychological distress, and sense of belonging to UQ. Here is the preliminary results. I know in the abstract I said that we will report the full data at the conference, but I'm still wrapping up all the data collection because students just finished the exam. So for now, we got choir group has 17 participants and 10 for the control group. Both choir and control group participants are mostly in 26 plus age range, and around 70% of them in both groups are female. The choir group has participants from 16 different countries. So you can see that here in the world map. Most of them are from different Asian countries. The control group are also mainly from Southeast or Northeast Asia. Now let's take a quick look at the findings. We did a 2x2 ANOVA to see if joining the choir made a difference to students' sense of belonging to UQ and their loneliness level. On the left, we have our sense of belonging results. The choir group started a bit higher than control at pre. At post, we noticed a slight increase in the sense of belonging among the choir group. The control group, however, didn't show much change, and no significant effects were found. On the right, we are looking at loneliness level. The choir group's loneliness dropped from pre to post, but the control group's loneliness went up. The change was not significant, but it's very close to the line. And the effect size here is medium to large. Because we have a very small sample size for now, we expect to see a significant result when we get the new data combined. So on this slide, we have our results for well-being and psychological distress. On the left side, we can see an increase in well-being for the control group from pre to post, while from the choir group from pre to post, and the control group showed a decrease. The change was not significant again, but we also got a medium effect size here. So maybe we will see a significant result when new data coming in. On the right side, we see a slight drop in psychological distress level for the control, while the choir group remains stable. Again, no significant effects here, but we can see choir group started off with relatively low levels of psychological distress, which might explain why that wasn't much change, so they not have enough room to improve. So while we are seeing all those positive trends for the choir group in terms of all the variables, we still need a bit more data to confirm all these patterns. Here, we got a word cloud which captures what our choir members feel about being in UQ Voices. The word cloud was generated from the responses to the feedback questions in the survey. Those big words here, such as friends, belonging, and community, show that our participants feel a strong sense of connection and friendship in the choir. Other words like singing, friendly, and happy tells us that choir is more than just singing together. It's about joy and welcoming atmosphere they experienced. And with terms like stress, relax, and well-being, we can see that being in the choir is seen as a stress reliever and boost their positive mood. So although at the moment we do not have a complete data set, we will try to collect them and continue next year to boost the numbers. We can see that more and more people made a true commitment to the choir. The retention rate and attendance rate are actually pretty positive. And choir members' connections extend beyond the choir group. So for example, here, they go to karaoke together even the semester ends. And some of the members who went back to their home countries in the middle part, they send messages back to update their life and to say, miss you guys. And students voluntarily organize a lot of activities with their choir members, such as barbecue, pasta making, and day trips. So as a preventative connection program, I think it's very important to provide students with a structured support group on campus to help them reduce their risk of experiencing loneliness or other mental health issues. And for future plans, there are a lot of national singing and health initiatives going on. It would be great if we can join the International Students Choir across Australia and have some collaborations with different programs. In the end, I want to say a big thank you to all our choir founders, especially Genevieve, and our choir director, Vicky, in the middle, our sponsor, Allianz Care, and of course to every choir member. Together, we've enjoyed more than music. We've built a community. And thank you everyone for joining me today.
Just while Bridie grabs me a chair, can you please all thank our speakers once again? Thanks, Bridie. Thank you so much. I think what we're seeing already today are so many examples of programs that are having really incredible impacts. And the challenge is how we scale those things up. You know, how do we get a program like Song Life into every GP clinic? How do we get, like you said, Rong, every university having something as simple as a choir for international students and look at the outcomes that come from that? And then picking up on some of the challenges, Julian, that you've mentioned in terms of research in this space. I see that programs like this, they sit in a difficult space in terms of funding opportunities, because the ARC is not really about health research, and the NHMRC is all about health, and a lot of this stuff sits a little bit in between. So I guess my question is for the panel, but also for other people in the room who have more experience in funding these types of programs, how do we talk about this kind of work in a way that suits the funder that we're going for? Do we have to kind of change our language to suit who we want to give us money? I just think that is a bit of a challenge for us. You have to be very careful in the ARC space not to talk about health. I think they literally do a scan of applications to make sure that the word health isn't mentioned. And I noted that you're looking for funding opportunities. So I'm just wondering where you're looking and how you talk about the impact of your programs to attract kind of interest.
Yes, I think I really feel that falling between different things. You look up funding opportunities, we don't quite fit there, and so it's certainly something that's being explored at the moment. It's quite challenging in general practice as well for general practitioners to find funding or have time outside of their workload to look at research in any way, and I feel that it's quite similar working in that context, that it's still an area of exploration, and we're looking to, yes, connect. You're not sure whether to connect with universities or connect with local government bodies, or I think it's still very much in progress.
Yep, I think that's beautifully said, Amy, and it's a really important question, Mel, around what happens next. I think for us, one of the things that's worked well is having a very strong advocate, and for us that's been our director, who I've never really come across a GP who has that much passion and investment in all types of supports for the well-being of his community. So to have him flying the flag, he's the one who actually applied for the PHN funding, and he tends to do things very, very quickly. So it's like a quick phone call to Amy and I and said, "I've got this idea. I can get this money. Do you think you can put the program together?" And so things are sometimes done very quickly, rather than spending time exploring opportunities here and there. So having a very strong advocate for us has made the world of difference. And education. We are constantly educating the staff the staff at the clinic about what music therapy can provide. Amy, you had an opportunity to speak to a journal, I think it was a journal club of GPs in relation to the topic of dementia care, and how music can support that health and well-being, not just of adults who have dementia, but also how to support those carers in caring for their parents.
Great, thank you. Gillian's just suggested we check to see if Jane is still online and whether Jane has any thoughts on this issue around funding and where we pitch these types of things. She may not be there. Jane has, okay, great.
At the risk of not articulating someone else's idea as well as they would, I think as I was checking in with Jane just before the presentation, and and thinking about these interstitial spaces, and I must say I feel like there's something quite frustratingly disempowering about the idea that well-being belongs to health, or in the same way that it's frustrating to think that care belongs to a medical model. That actually, of course, we're all invested in these things, and they are overarching and underpinning so much of our work. So I think, not just our work, but our lives, this is about being human. I'm wanting to connect back to Naomi's presentation this morning. When we take a First Nations-led approach, then some of those silos start to get dismantled, and I do think that is where a lot of answers are going to lie. Maybe we need to just hold tight and keep for those of us who are non-Indigenous people, to be ensuring that those spaces are open and expanding for our Indigenous colleagues, to make sure that their knowledge is being brought into these research spaces and able to therefore permeate and influence and be part of the work of shifting how this work is conceptualised and therefore funded.
Thanks, Gillian. Do we have any questions in the room at the moment? Anyone?
Hi, I'm Flora. I've got a quick question, I guess mostly for the second and third presenters, just reflecting back on Catherine's presentation earlier about some of the gaps and sort of the predisposition to look at the cases in which things have worked really well. Have you observed any notable instances of people dropping out of the program, for example, and for example with the choir at UQ, participants sort of withdrawing from the study or anyway? I'd love to know, what are some of the gaps that you might have encountered as well?
Thank you for your question. I think accessibility is challenging on a number of levels. Just thinking about really practical things like location for us, we have quite a small space to work with. We're limited by numbers. We're limited by physical accessibility. The building is older. It's quite difficult for parents with prams, for parents with disabilities to access the space. Being able to pay for the program is another one that's quite challenging and limits us to the people who can afford it in the area. And while it's really valuable that they access these programs, those who aren't able to afford it also need to be able to access programs like this. We feel in very early stages of running this program, and it's still growing and developing, but we're interested in expanding as well. How do you grow the program without the program itself developing into what it needs to be in the different spaces? And similar to what Catherine was saying, looking at how can other musicians engage in this health area outside the therapy world, because there just aren't that many of us. And how can we connect in that way? So.
Rong, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that? You mentioned that it seems to be kind of really gaining momentum with more people joining the choir, but are there particular attitudes or beliefs or things in certain people that prevent them from participating?
We noticed that there was a pretty high withdrawal rate, actually. One reason is because some of the students, they are exchange students, so they join the choir for a while and then they go back to their home countries, but they still stay like connected through WhatsApp. But some of the students, they just come and try and then never show up again. We are trying to capture those students, like have their contact information, and then just to text them to say like, hey, what's happening, like what's going on through the semester. And we also want to try to analyze the data who only gave us the pre-survey data and didn't give us the post-survey, to compare their like anxiety, depression level to see is that part of the reason why they didn't continue to join us. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in the room at the moment? Yes, over here.
And thanks everyone for really interesting presentations. So my question is probably mostly for Gillian. Maybe others have thoughts on it as well. I'm really interested in interdisciplinary collaboration, and I'm wondering if there are particular lessons that came out of this large-scale interdisciplinary work that might sort of inform future efforts of a similar nature. What are the features of good collaborative practice? What are the kinds of barriers for having all voices heard? And are there particular methods that you've experimented with facilitating dialogue across those disciplinary barriers that I think sometimes prevent us from really hearing and understanding where others are coming from?
This is where the fact that I only joined the steering committee in 2023 is going to reveal the limitations of my knowledge. I'm happy to chat with you further, and I can also connect you with Jane later, but sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure
it's a hard question
strategies,
anyway, so.
models, and ideas, and also because the projects that were funded were before my time as well, so I'm not that familiar with them, sorry.
Was there someone else over here as well? Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. Really interesting work that you're all engaged in. Rong, I had a question for you about the data that you pointed to that showed that the markers of psychological distress in your choir participants didn't really change over time, and you said that was because, I can't remember if this was a hypothesis, that they had actually not been experiencing significant psychological distress at the start of the program, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about why that might be. Do you think it's, I guess, that the kind of person who would seek to engage in a program like this might have other qualities or coping mechanisms or kind of tools, I guess, to cope with psychological distress, or is it something else? How would you explain that?
Based on my experience, because I'm also one of the choir member, I talked to a lot of students. They are from the English bridging program, so it might be a gap between their knowledge of mental health. You know, like they probably do not have a lot of mental health literacy part for that. So when we are asking those kind of questions, they might be feel like I'm not quite sure what you are like targeted. I would say, but some of the students, they are graduate students who are very aware of their mental health problem and their mental health state. They have like a how do you say, a lot of coping strategies already. When I talk to them, they say like, oh, I already use a lot of strategies to self-care. Yeah, so that's a thing there.
Thank you.
Brady.
Thanks to all of you for really interesting presentations and interesting threads. Melissa's doing a great job of drawing those out. And thanks to the 15 people who are online. I'm getting constant updates from Flora, who I know are following along. What's striking to me is who we have on this panel. We have representation from the field of music therapy. Rong and Genevieve do a lot of work in the field of psychology. We know Jane and Gillian have backgrounds in, artistic research, as well as broader studies of well-being, peace and conflict studies. It's not always the case that all of these fields come together when we're asking big questions about music and health and well-being. I've been to so many conferences where we don't see a single music therapist in the music education sphere, or you go to a music therapy context and you don't see any of the community musicians there, and it's always struck me that we're missing a trick in this huge field of health and well-being, that we're not working together more. And so I'd love to make the most of this unique opportunity when we've got music therapists and psychologists and artistic researchers all in the same space at the same time. How can we collaborate better across all of our different fields, harnessing, as Uncle Glenn would say, our superpowers and different ways of working to come to an even greater understanding of what's going on, but also to further the work and to point to your opening remarks, Melissa, actually work at a greater scale, but also at that really individual granular level. So how can we work more together, I guess, is the nub of what I'm asking.
I think my presentation tomorrow is actually going to, talk about some of those types of things, Bridie. I think what we're dealing with here is complexity, and it's absolutely necessary when you're dealing with complexity to have an interdisciplinary perspective. And so what I would love to get out of the next couple of days is some kind of consilience, which is a common understanding amongst us of what it is that we think is of value here and how we can convince the majority of people that what we have is of value. I think there's a big challenge, particularly convincing the average person who doesn't see themselves as musical, who doesn't see themselves as creative, to want to partake in this these beneficial activities. That's one thing that I'm really interested in. I want to know how I can convince the person who doesn't have that kind of sense of musical identity that they should access this service, or they should be, a member of your choir. And so there's some of the things, I'm just selfishly taking the floor here, but there's some of the things that I would really love to explore with everybody in the room as well. We all know that going for a walk is good for us and we all have to drink water and all that kind of thing. But do we do it? Well, no, not always. And I feel like we're in that space as well, where we all know that this is really beneficial, but how we convince more people about that, I think, is one of the challenges that I'm finding myself. We can have these great services, but some people just won't want to access it because they don't think that that's for them.
I'd like to sort of add a question to your question, Bridie, and it's, I wonder if in other contexts, outside, say, the English-speaking world, if there are answers as well, or if they're doing this better. We're blessed to have a lot of international delegates here, so perhaps there are people in the audience who might have thoughts about how these sorts of vast and diverse knowledges could be working together better to address some of these great challenges.
I don't know that I've got a lot more to add to that, because that input is just so wonderful and so important to hear. And I suppose coming from a music therapist perspective, where there are so few of us, the opportunity to learn from one another is, outside of the music therapy profession, is invaluable. I can say that I've had recent opportunities to engage with professionals outside of music therapy, and that's where I think there's enormous value in supporting and advocating for that role of health and well-being through music. The more we can do of that and recognise that each professional has an expertise and skills and knowledge, and that combined force is unbelievable. as to what we can achieve. So thinking outside the square, really, and being brave to take steps.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's a bit, I guess, of a vulnerable space to talk about this, but I think for a long time music therapists have been trying to work their way into health, that we've forgotten about the music, which it sounds funny because we sing all day, every day, but we're so much about, oh, we need to have the evidence and what are the health outcomes and what about singing together and what about embracing that music in these spaces and other arts as well, other art forms. So yeah, it just brought that to mind as we were talking about this from the professional side of things, and then how to communicate that with patients and participants as well.
I think that's time, but some really, really fascinating points of discussion. And to pick up on what Bridie said, let's make the most of this opportunity. Let's make the most of the breaks that we have to meet people from different fields and to really share, our own expertise with each other, because I truly believe that it's where that's where the real innovation is going to happen in this field. So I want to thank our fascinating panel for today, and looking forward to more great discussions as we proceed through the program. I think we're having an afternoon tea now, so back in the usual spot, and we'll see you all here shortly. Thank you.